Hi everyone, and welcome to my next video tutorial, which will focus on deploying static files with Cloudinary from a Django application. Now, of course, in my previous video tutorial, I also did focus on Cloudinary, but in that tutorial, unlike in this one, today we are going to focus on deploying static files, whereas in the previous video, we focused on managing and hosting user-uploaded images with Cloudinary itself. But today, static files, and this will include CSS and JavaScript files. Alright, so what I'm going to do, and like before, I'm going to start off very simple, create a basic Django project, configure it, configure views, templates, etc. Now, like always, I'm going to configure and set this video up into two chapters, namely setting up the Django project and then, of course, going ahead and deploying the static files with Cloudinary. So if you are quite confident with Django, you're more than welcome to skip ahead. If you are still in the beginner stages, then I would recommend you just follow along with me. Alright, so let's get started. So I'm just going to create a new folder on my desktop here. I'm going to call it development. Okay, so this will be development, so my development project. Then what I'm going to do is head over and search for my command prompt, so my CMD. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make this a bit easier to see for you guys. And what we want to do first of all is install a package globally on our system, and that is called virtual env. So I'm going to say pip install virtual env, and with this package we'll be able to create virtual environments for our projects. Now usually you wouldn't go ahead and install packages globally on your system like I'm doing, so you would install them in your virtual environment, but in this case we need to at least install the virtual env package globally before we can actually start creating virtual environments. So this would be the only instance, or one of the few instances, where we would do it. So go ahead and run that command, so pip install virtual env. Right, so it's been installed, great. Clear this up. Next we want to head over to our development folder, so I'm just going to say cd desktop and / development. So I'm just switching it over, so I'm in here now, so let's clear that up. So CLS is a command you can use in the command prompt just to start from a fresh new line. Now of course when you're creating your Django project there are many ways to do it. You don't have to follow the way I do it, I'm just showing you my preference. This is just the way in one of my ways in which I start Django projects. Okay, great. So now what we want to do is create a virtual environment. So what you can do is create it by the following command. So you can say virtual env and name your virtual environment. I'm going to call it venv. Now this part is custom, you can change it, but the virtual env command you need to add. But this part here you can call it venv1, venv2, anything you want, and press enter. Go ahead and do just that. Okay, just give it a moment. Okay, so it does take a while to create a virtual environment, and once it's done, there we go, it's been done, been completed. Close this up, and now we can go ahead and see in our folder here, development, we have our virtual environment in place. So there it is. Okay, so what we can do now in the CMD, we can go ahead and say venv. So we are referencing that virtual environment name that we created, /scripts /activate. So if you can see here your virtual environment was in parentheses, that means you are within your virtual environment and that it's also activated. So in here we want to go ahead and install all the packages from now on for our Django project. So the first package we need is Django. So we're going to say pip install Django. So go ahead and do just that. So pip install Django. Okay, so may take just a moment. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to wait until it has been installed and then we will move on to the next set of steps. So it does take a while to install Django because Django also has a lot of other sub packages that it installs along with it, as you can see. So let's just wait for that to be installed. All right, perfect. So we can see that Django has indeed been installed. Now a good way to verify if packages are installed in your virtual environment here is to just type in pip list. Okay. And there we go, we can see Django has been installed. Now you can also see Django comes with other packages right next to it as well, so you don't need to worry about that. Some are by default, such as pip, for example, is there by default, but we can see, for example, SQL parse, tz data, okay, this comes from Django itself, all right. So we can just type CLS now. Perfect. Now what we can do in our development folder is we can now create our Django project. So you want to go ahead and just say Django-admin start project and give your project a name. I'm just going to call it Elevate. Press enter. There we go. So we have our project set. Now let's head over to Visual Studio Code. So you would need an IDE. I'll recommend Visual Studio Code. Then you can click on File, Open Folder, and Desktop. Then choose that development folder that you were in. And there we are. So we can see in this development folder we have our Django project. Okay, with manage.py. And we also have our virtual environment folder here as well. So that's perfect. Now what we want to do is we want to head over here and we want to close the CMD. We don't need to always use it. You can use the CMD if you wish, or you can use a Visual Studio Code terminal. So I'm going to close this here and I'm going to toggle up here the toggle panel. Okay, and let's just move the debug console to the right. And what we will need to do is just set up a few things. So first you want to just turn on your virtual environment here. So you can just go ahead and say venv /scripts /activate. Type CLS, there we are. And we are now in our development folder, as you can see. That's perfect. And now we would need to cd into Elevate now, because we need to call our manage.py file. So you can go ahead and just say cd elevate. Okay, and now we can run our manage.py file. So we can now say Python manage.py and run server to turn on our Django server. All right, perfect. So we can see our Django server is now running using Django version 4.1.7. Perfect. And that is actually just about it, guys. So make sure you've gone ahead and that you've set up your Django project accordingly. Right. So to test that your server is running, you can head over and type in your URL 127.0.0.0.1 and then map it to port 8000. And there we go. So if you can see this, congratulations, your Django project is up and running. All right, so let's move on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a basic Django app and configure it. So what I'm going to do is turn off the server here. So you can do that by pressing Control-C. So Control-C, like so, and just clear it up with CLS. Perfect. Now what we want to do now is create an app. So what you can do is type in Django-admin start app, and I'm going to call mine links. So start your app. Perfect. And if we open up our Elevate project, our Django project, we should see links, and that is our app. Okay, you can name your app anything that you want. This is just what I regularly call it. Okay, and let's just clear this up. Now we have created a basic Django app. Now we need to configure it. So you can head over to your settings.py file. Okay, let's just remove these comments. Okay, and you want to head down to installed apps right here. And what you want to do here is you just want to go ahead and you want to put in your app name. So mine was called links, so I'm just going to put links here. Be sure to add a comma there, so make sure you've got that in place. And just for now, I just want to set allowed host to all for now. Okay, it's just force of habit there, so you can change this if you wish. Okay, since we are testing and development. Okay, and the next thing we want to do to ensure we don't have any errors or problems, we need to select our interpreter. So I'm going to show you how I usually do it. And what I usually do is I head over to my development folder on my desktop, click in my virtual environment, and here in the address bar here, I copy that virtual environment path, head over to Visual Studio Code, and then I press Control, Shift, and P on my keyboard. So Control, Shift, P. Then I say Python select interpreter, and I say here enter interpreter path, and then I paste that in and press enter. And there you can see now it's now running accordingly based on our virtual environment folder. All right. Now, just to ensure everything is working still fine, it's always best to run Python manage.py run server just to double check and ensure everything is running smoothly. Okay, that's good. Let's refresh. All right, everything's working still perfectly as it should. Great. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and configure our views and templates. Okay, we're going to keep it very simple here. So what we're going to do is we first of all need to open up our main project's urls.py file, which is here. And what you can do here, actually, I just want to make this a bit smaller for you guys. Okay, we can just remove these comments, everything in the green. And we then want to head over, and I think it's best to stop the server actually. So let's stop the server, Control-C. Okay, and we can move it slightly up. That's fine. And what we can do here under links, we can go ahead and create a urls.py file here for links. So you can right click on it, say new file, and say urls.py. Okay, like so. And we just need to copy a bit of the markup here. So we need to ensure that we can make URLs in our links app urls.py file. So we would need to make use of the parse function. So you can add that in. Then we're going to want to make use of views here, which is already in our links app. So we can go ahead and define that accordingly. And then we would need to set our URL patterns like so. So add in your URL patterns. Okay, and this is going to house, of course, all of our URLs itself. So in regards to the views, you would say from.import views. Right, perfect. Right, so the URLs is configured here for links. Now we just need to call it in our main urls.py file and just set it up accordingly. So what you want to do here is simple. You just want to say parse. And I'm going to leave that as an empty string. You can decide what you want to do. And to do this, to include all of the URLs that we define in our links app here, which go in the URL patterns, we need to make use of the include function, which we can import alongside the parse function here. And then we can say include within parentheses, and we can just include all of the URLs in links here. So we can just go ahead then and just say links.urls and be sure to add in your comma at the end. Right, so make sure you set that up accordingly. So we are just linking up our URLs from links here, our app, and just setting it up in our main urls.py file here, namely in Elevate. Okay, so you can close this up here, and we just want to have the urls.py file open for our links app here. Next, we can open up our views here, put it next to us right here. And what we want to do now is we want to configure our templates directory. Now you can either do the project level templates, which most of you do, which is usually to head over to settings.py and to head down to templates and configure your templates dirs. Now you can do it this way, but the way I prefer is to create app level templates. So you can go ahead here and within links, you can right click on your app here. So let's take that off. Right click and say new folder, and you want to call it templates. Now you can simply now go ahead and right click and say a new file, index.html or homepage.html, anything you want. But to ensure we don't have namespace errors, it's best to right click on templates here, say new folder, and it's best to refer to it as the app in which the templates folder has been created. So here I'm just going to say links again, and that will refer that app. And here it was in links, you'll then proceed to create your templates itself. Okay, you could, like I said, manually create them in templates without having to configure anything else, but for best practices, rather do it this way as follows. So right click now on the links directory within templates, say new file, and I'm going to call it index.html, like so. So go ahead and set that up. And what we can do here is we can just add some basic markup. It's really up to you what you want to add. So let me just add some lines here, and what we can do for now is just say h1 homepage. We just want to configure the views and templates first. We'll make it nicer later. And we can then head over to views, and we can reference this index.html page. So you can say def, and I'm going to call mine index. We need to pass in the request object. We want to then return our template. So we're going to say return render. Pass in that request, and we want to reference where that index.html file is situated, so we can see it's under templates and links. So we don't refer to the templates reference, we say links first. Okay, / and then we say index, because templates is kind of like a default directory which Django automatically recognizes. That's why we don't need to explicitly say templates. And then index.html. Perfect. Then we need to go ahead and define this view in our urls.py file. So here what you can do is you can say parse, because we're referencing the parse function, and we're using parse to create our URL. And here I'm going to leave it as an empty string. I just want to pass in the view, which is views.index. Then I'm going to set my name parameter here and just leave it as empty quotes like so. Just be sure to also add in a comma at the end there. Now what you want to do now is you want to run your server, so you can say python manage.py, run server, like so. So go ahead and do just that. There we go, it's running. Now if we were to refresh our page, there we go, Done. So we can now see that our homepage now on our main homepage is now rendering accordingly as it should. So there we go, we've done it. We've gone ahead and created a basic Django project, created a basic Django app, configured it, and configured our views and templates. Now what we can do next is we can configure our static files, and we can just add a little bit of meat, you could say, to our index.html file, just add a little bit more complexity to it. All right. So let's go ahead and configure our static files and set everything up accordingly. So we can remove the views, URLs, that's been configured correctly. And let's head over to our settings.py file in our main project directory here. Head over to the right. And we just want to ensure our static files are configured. So you can scroll down until you see static URL. Now what I usually like to do is just add in an extra slash here right at the back of static. Choice is yours if you want to do that. And what we want to do here is ensure that we connect our base directory with our static files directory. Now before we can do that, we need to ensure that we have a static folder directory here within our project. So I'm going to right click on Elevate, say new folder, and I'm going to call it static. Just like so. Now we need to reference this static folder and tell Django, hey, I want you to serve my CSS, JavaScript files, etc. from this static folder here. So what you can do here is say static, okay, files underscore dirs, and you want to set that equal to base dir / static, just like so. So go ahead and set that up accordingly. Then the next thing you want to do is in your static folder, right click, and then you want to say new folder, and we need one for CSS, and right click on static again, new folder, and we need one for JavaScript. So we're going to essentially have in our static folder two directories, subdirectories known as CSS and JS for JavaScript. Okay, so make sure you've set this up accordingly in order to serve your CSS and JavaScript files. So here essentially we're telling Django where to look for our static folder. We're telling it to look in our base directory here accordingly, and then to look for the static folder as follows. Great, so once you've done that, you can close this. Okay. And what we want to do next, before we move on further, is we just want to style up our index.html page a bit. So let's just add some changes here. So I'm going to zoom in, make it a bit clearer. Actually, let's leave it like that. Okay, so first we need to go ahead and say load static if we want to make use of our static files in index.html. So we're going to say load static. Okay, once we've done that, we can just add some basic HTML markup. So we're just going to add the doc type. Okay, so we are making use of HTML5. Okay, add your HTML tags here. So this can be anything that you wish. Add in a header tag. So we want to add in a title, and I'm going to say my website. Okay, all right, that's fine for now. And then what we want to do is we just simply want to add a simple body tag here. So these are just optional things, and I'm just going to say here, welcome to the homepage. Okay, all right, make sure it's closed by the HTML tag there, and that's just the basics that we need. Okay, so let's refresh our page here. Okay, welcome to the home page. You'll see that we've changed the h1 tag here accordingly, so it now says welcome to the home page. And we've also changed the page title here in the header tags. So if I were to zoom up here, you can see in the header tags here, I have my website. Okay, so to make this clearer for you guys, I'll just move this terminal out. So you can see here from the top what we're doing. So we just created a load static here just to ensure we can make use of our static files, set up a doc type. You just using basic HTML tags here just to encapsulate it, our header tag, which will encapsulate our title, just a body tag, which will house our h1 tag. Okay, so just basic HTML. Now what we want to do is create our CSS and JavaScript files. So here on the left, we can head over to static, and within CSS we can right click on it and say new file, and I'm going to call it styles.css. And all I want to do here is alter the h1 tag here. Right, I want to make the font color here blue, so I just want to say h1. Okay, and I'm going to say color blue. Just that. So add some simple CSS. I'm just showing you as a demonstration, especially for those that are beginners here. So you can just add that like follows. And now we want to reference this styles.css file here with index.html. So to do that, what you want to do is in your header tag, that would be the best place to do it, is you want to add in the following, and that is link rel, and we want to reference it as a style sheet since it's based on CSS. Then the type, of course, we need to reference it as CSS, so text CSS. And then the href here, we want to link it. We want to essentially call this styles.css file here. So we say href, and here we're just going to add in our curly braces and say static. And then here in quotes, and in that as a percentage symbol, we want to say css/style.css. So we're looking in static. So we're looking in our static folder, which is here. Okay. And then we're going to head over to the subdirectory here, which is CSS, as you can see here. And we're going to then head over and click on this styles.css file, which is right here. So that is the directory structure that you are heading into. Just make sure at the end you just close up this link here so that it's set accordingly. All right. All right, so that is what we're doing here. That's how you can link your CSS file accordingly. So what we can do is just move our terminal up a bit here. To make sure, yeah, let's move it a bit more. Okay, and what I want us to do is just Control-C and rerun your server. Just make sure it's still working fine. Okay, great, and we can refresh. And there we go. Welcome to the homepage. Now, for some of you, it's not going to show the first time, and this is because you need to clear your cache. Now, it's very easy to do that. You can just click here on your developer tool section. So you want to head over. I'm using Google Chrome. So here on the far right, you can click on these three dots. Then you want to scroll down to more tools. And then you want to click on developer tools right here at the bottom. So just look at the path and the pattern here from the right to the left here. So you're going to click on the three dots, head over to more tools, hover over that, and then you want to scroll to developer tools. All right, now you'll see this fancy box here and this console with these options. And here on the far left here on this refresh icon, you want to right click on it and you want to say empty cache and hard reload. Okay, just give it a moment to do so. Right, then you can close this up and just give another refresh here, and you should see the CSS will be in effect. This is something that usually always happens, so don't stress. Just follow these steps to manually refresh your page, and you'll see the CSS. You need to do that. You need to empty the cache because I know for probably at least a third of you guys will have to do that. Okay, perfect. Now that we are rendering our CSS file locally, we want to create a JavaScript file and test that out as well. So we can close this and let's just minimize this terminal. Yeah, that's fine. We can always pull it up. So here you can see we have this arrow where we can pull up the terminal again. So you don't need to worry about that. Or you can just pop it back up here. Okay. So here in JS, we want to right click, say new file, and I'm going to call this app.js. And we just want to add some basic JavaScript here. And I'm going to say alert. And here I'm just going to put in hello world. Remember to add a semicolon since you're using JavaScript. So a basic alert here. Now we want to render and call our app.js file similar to the CSS file here. So it's going to be a similar structure. So we need to call the static folder, then the JS folder, and reference that JavaScript file. So I like to do this right at the bottom here. So just at the end, well, just above the end of the file. And I want to say script source, and we are immediately going to add logic that is very similar here. So we can literally copy this logic, and we're just going to change a few things. Namely, we want to look in static, which is correct. Then we want to look into JS, so we can just switch this over with JS. And then we want to look at app.js. So you want to switch this out and say app.js, like so. And then you want to just close up your tag here, like so. All right, so that's how you can reference your JavaScript. Now we can head over to our application and refresh the page. And there we go, hello world. So each time your page were to load, you would have to click OK here, and you'll see we got some basic JavaScript coming up. Now again, if you don't see it the first time, head over to more tools here. So these three dots in the top right corner, more tools, developer tools. And then in the top left, you want to right click and say empty cache and hard reload. And you can see it automatically gets rendered. accordingly. So that's how you can go ahead and set up your basic CSS and your JavaScript files. Now we've got that set up, we understand how to integrate it. Now what we want to do is, if we are moving to a live server, we want to get our application up and running, we need to somehow serve our static files in a more production-oriented environment if we are using our website on the internet. Now this is good for local testing and development, but we need something a bit better that's more production-based. So you can easily use Amazon S3 buckets, which I prefer, or you can use Cloudinary, which I'm going to show you in this video tutorial how to set that up. All right, so make sure you have a basic project set up. So this is catered if you're a beginner or you just want to follow along for continuity, which is something I would encourage. So just make sure you've got that basic project all set up and going. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up Cloudinary accordingly. So again, we're going to set up a Cloudinary account, and then we're going to install a few packages and configure it out as it should be. Right, so let's continue and let's set up a Cloudinary account. Now you can head over to cloudinary.com. Now, of course, like always, I'll always attach the links in the description below for you to go ahead and find. Now, I just want to mention, some of you may already have a Cloudinary account if you followed my previous video. If you do have one, you can skip this part. If you don't, let's get started. So we can just click here and say sign up for free. And you want to say sign up with email. Okay, so go ahead and just enter in some details. So I'm just putting in my name. Okay, email. I'm just going to put in one of my test emails. 829. So enter in your email. Be sure to enter in a secure password here. You'll see it will prompt you for a few checks here. And just say I'm not a robot. And get started now. Let's just give it a moment. Okay, so it's then going to go ahead and ask you to verify your email address. Head over to your email. Okay, you'll get an email here from Cloudinary. And what you want to do here is you want to scroll down and say sign in to validate your email address. So you can click on this button right here. Now, if for some reason the button doesn't work, you'll see just below that button, it does have a link which you can click on. And you can also go ahead and copy and paste that link in the URL if you're having an issue with the button here. So we'll see, there we go. So we'll see, we'll just have an option. So developer, continue. Okay, this doesn't matter, build a new website app product, done. Okay, so you can just answer those questions, very simple. And here we are. So what you can do now is you can just close this pop-up, head over to dashboard. So you can click here on the left. And here we are, perfect. All right, so make sure that you've gone ahead and that you've created your Cloudinary account. All right. Next thing that you want to do is you can go ahead and close your email and close Cloudinary there. So make sure you're on your Cloudinary dashboard accordingly. And here you'll see you'll have some default credentials. And like I always say, make sure you store them in the environment variables when you are deploying to production. So this will include your cloud name, API key, and API secret key. So what we can do now is install the Django Cloudinary storage package, because we need to make use of this package here to go ahead and ensure that we can deploy our static files to Cloudinary itself. So what we can do is head over to our project and we want to open up our console. So we can just say Control-C, and you want to rerun your server. Just make sure it's running and it's okay, and make sure you're in your virtual environment. Let's just see if it's working fine. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's fine. Perfect. All right, that's good. So we just want to make sure it's working fine, and make sure you're in your virtual environment before you install the package. So the package is Django Cloudinary Storage. Copy that. Head over to your terminal, paste that in, and press enter. Now you'll notice this Django Cloudinary Storage package is going to install a lot of packages along with the main package here, including Cloudinary. So it does take a moment. Perfect. And you can type in pip list, but to be honest, it's Cloudinary storage package is going to install a lot of packages along with it, such as the Django Cloudinary Storage, IDNA, what else do we have? Cloudinary, and a few other things as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, great. So we've gone ahead and we've installed the Cloudinary package accordingly. So what you want to do now is you want to go ahead and add Cloudinary and Cloudinary storage to your installed apps. So we can head over to settings.py. Let's just minimize this a bit. And we can scroll up to installed apps, and I just want to put a comment here that says Django app. And we have 2 to install. Now the Cloudinary package you can install at the bottom of installed app, so that doesn't really matter. So Cloudinary, you can install right down here, that's fine. Now if we are making use of static files, okay, you'll see by default Django has an app called django.contrib.static files. Now in order for us to make use of Cloudinary, we need to override the default Django static files installed apps, which means you need to put it above static files. But if you want to be safe, add it right at the top. That will be the best place. So please make sure that you add this Cloudinary _ storage package right at the top here. So make sure you do that, and don't forget, it cannot be below static files, or else it's not going to work if you want to host static files on Cloudinary itself. So that's just something important, so keep that in mind. Next thing you want to do is you want to just make your migrations. So here we can just say Python, let's actually move this a bit up. So Python manage.py make migrations. So we can type this one first, and then we can just do migrate. So it's just a force of habit here, migrate. So go ahead and make your migrations. Perfect, there we go. Right, everything is set and in place accordingly. So just go ahead and make your migrations. Perfect. All right, so we've got that set and ready to go. Next thing we want to do is we want to configure our Cloudinary credentials. So we did this, I believe, in the previous tutorial as well. So what you can do is just untoggle this. So you can toggle and untoggle your terminal here, which is very helpful. Okay, so right down here, just below installed apps, what we can do is specify our Cloudinary details. And we're going to start it off by saying Cloudinary _ storage. And we're going to say equals, and here within curly braces you want to add in a few things. So the first thing you want to add is cloud name. So we're adding key value pairs here. Add your colon, and you can leave that as an empty string for now as the value, and then API key. So the keys here that we have, not like the API key, but the keys, because this is very dictionary like, we have these key value pairs, you could say. So we would need to ensure that we have this markup set correctly. Okay, then we have API _ secret. Like so. So make sure you've got this set. So we've got our keys, you could say here, the cloud name, API key, API secret. And here within quotes, we want to go ahead and actually add in, don't need a comma here at the end actually. We want to add in our values, and we can get these values from Cloudinary. So our cloud name, so you'll see here we have this copy icon on each of these individual credentials. So cloud name, we can copy that, and here in cloud name you can paste that in. Then API key, copy that, paste it in here, and then API secret, and you want to copy that and paste that in accordingly. So make sure you've added all of that in, and it's set up and ready to go. Now let's just run our server, make sure everything is, start this from the beginning. So Python manage.py run server. So let's run our server. Okay, that's fine. All right, good. Okay, so make sure you've configured your Cloudinary storage credentials accordingly. So get your cloud name, get your API key, get your API secret from Cloudinary itself, and just add it in accordingly as I have done. The next thing we need to do is we need to link our default static file storage. We need to link the default static file storage to Cloudinary itself. So you can scroll down to where we had static. So here we have it. We can just simply go ahead and add in the following, which is static files _ storage equals, and we can just add an empty string for now. So static files _ storage. What you want to do now is head over to the package here, which is Django Cloudinary storage, and we can scroll down a bit here. Okay, most of this here you can go ahead and skip ahead, but you want to look for usage with static files. So we can look for that here there. So let's see, usage with static files. So here we have this static file storage part here. We've already written this static files _ storage variable here, but what we want to do is add in this value. So you can copy that like so, copy that, and you want to paste that in here within quotes. Okay, so this is going to link it accordingly, right? Now, what you want to do now is you want to ensure that you run python-manage.py collect static, and essentially we're going to upload all of our static files right here that we have. Okay, we're going to upload them to Cloudinary itself. Okay, so what we can do is we can head over to our terminal. Okay, and you want to type in the following command now. Make sure you have static files first of all, so make sure that you actually have something to test with. So you have a CSS file and perhaps a JavaScript file. Make sure you have that in place, very important. So what you can do now in your terminal is you want to run the following command, right? And that is python manage, okay, .py collect static, but you need to add something extra. You need to say -- upload, okay, dash unhashed dash files. So if I can maybe make this a bit wider. No, I can't. Okay, so as you can see here, python manage.py collect static -- upload dash unhashed dash files. So you have no spacing or anything. To make it easier for you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this actually to as a comment on the video of this, so you can go ahead and see it itself. So add that command in accordingly. And then it's going to say this will override existing files. Are you sure you want to do this? So you can say type yes to continue. So you can say yes. Now this does take quite a while, so you're going to have to be patient. So there's not an error here. It does take a really long time. It can take up to 5 to 10 minutes perhaps. So you want to go ahead and add that in accordingly. Now you're probably wondering why we added that thing that said upload unhashed files. So you can read more about this here, where we are adding in this upload unhashed files argument to collect static. Okay, so with Cloudinary, okay, it's going to assume that your files are already hashed, but in our case, in our static files, they are not hashed. So we're just going to upload it normally by saying upload unhashed files. So that is the main reason for it. Okay, so that you can read more about it. I'll attach this in the link in the description below, so you can read more about that as to why we added that prefix to it accordingly. All right, so let's just wait for our files to be sent to Cloudinary. So I'm going to pause the video, and once that's been done, we can go ahead and configure the last set of steps. All right. Hi everyone, and welcome back. So now we can see 142 static files were copied and 142 post-processed. You're probably wondering why on earth are there 142 static files? Now, this is largely because of our admin files behind the scenes. That's usually the case, but there are also files behind the scenes in our application that does get copied as well. But rest assured, the static files that we created ourselves have been set up accordingly. All right. So what we can go ahead and do now is we can check if those files are rendering from Cloudinary itself. Now, it's not going to render from Cloudinary just yet. There is one more thing we need to configure, but there is something important I want to teach you so you know. So what you want to do now is you want to just type cls and run your server. So python manage.py run server. Go ahead and run that. Okay, there we go, it's running. And you want to head over to your application, refresh it. Okay, it says hello world, good, and it's still outputting the blue here. Okay, fine. And let's right click on our web application, and you want to click on view page source. Now, if you right click on it here, you can see it's still being served in our Django application. It says static css styles.css, static /js /app.js. You can see it's still being served like this accordingly. All right, now this is not right. We want to see it being served by Cloudinary. So let's close this up, and the only thing you actually need to do is if you scroll up in your settings.py file, you want to make sure that debug is set to false, because with debug equals set to true, it's going to by default use your static files in your Django application. So if you are making use of Amazon S3 buckets, Cloudinary, an external cloud object service provider, you need to put in false here for debug, then restart your server. Okay. Okay, there we go. You can refresh your page. Okay, and if you want clarity, just to double check, you can click here, head over to developer tools like we did before. Just in case, if you want to double check everything, right click on the refresh icon in the top left, empty cache and hard reload. Okay, everything is being output. Refresh your page again, and then if you right click on your page and say view page source, you'll see it's now being served from Cloudinary itself here. So you can see our static files are being served from Cloudinary. So if you click here, for example, the CSS files, you can see it's being served from Cloudinary here. And if you check on your JavaScript files here, it's also being served from Cloudinary, as you can see. So just a useful trick just to keep in mind if you want to ensure that your static files are being served accordingly. Now you can of course head over to Cloudinary, and you can of course head over to the media library here. Okay, and what we can actually see here is we have this static files .json file, which is going to of course encapsulate everything accordingly with what we push to Cloudinary itself. Okay, so in my opinion, when it comes to static files in this user interface, Amazon S3 is a better way. But what I found really good about Cloudinary is actually very simple in some aspects, easier to use in some aspects in terms of Amazon S3 in some ways, but both are very good options. But this is quite great actually. Now, you're probably wondering to yourself, what about the admin page? Now, this is a typical question that I've seen people asking and wondering. So if we head over to the admin page now, right, so as we can see here on our admin page, the static files have also been rendered correctly, as we can see. So we can right click, say view page source, and as we can see here, it's being served by Cloudinary. As you can see here, that's the reason why I said earlier that it went ahead and copied 142 static files, which does seem like a lot. So that is a big part of these static files being sent over. Now the good thing is, by running python manage.py collect static, it's also something you can use to automate updates to your static files. So that is a very useful command to go ahead and make use of. I will be sure to add that in the comments section below. Now, when you are using Amazon S3 buckets, you would simply say python manage.py collect static. But if you are using Cloudinary, you would say python manage.py collect static, and then you want to add in this upload unhashed files prefix to it, which I'll add in the comments section below, like I said. So just something interesting to mention and just to observe. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's how you can deploy your static files, okay, with Cloudinary from a Django application. So I hope it helped you. And as always, guys, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. And yeah, until next time, see you next time. See you guys.